This meeting of the County Commissioners to order on August 22nd, 2023. We could start out by saying the pledge, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you don't mind for a moment of silence, let's keep in our prayers the disaster that's taken place on one of the islands of Hawaii and all those unfortunate souls that are still missing. Let's keep them in our prayers, please. Thank you very much. Time is allotted at the end of each meeting for the commissioners to receive comments from the public. To start off with, we have four consent items. We have regular session minutes dated August the 8th, 2023. We have liquor minutes dated August the 8th, 2023. We have public hearing minutes dated August the 8th, 2023. And we also have Planning Commission annual report. Do I have a motion to approve these?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. We have two special Class C licenses, applications for special Class C licenses. One's from Minery's Dream Alliance, beer and wine only, for September the 16th, 2023. And then we have one application by Kent County Chamber of Commerce, beer, wine, and liquor, dated September 23rd, 2023. Due to the fact that these are dealing with alcoholic beverages, we have to have a public hearing. We will consider today a public hearing for these two applications. Anyone that would like to speak for or against either of these applications, feel free to do so at this time. Yes, sir.
Would you like to speak against the Minery's Dream?
Sure.
Okay. My name is Eric Kullatower. Okay. Just wanted to make sure I'm following the procedure. While not specific to any request to deny the requested temporary permit, it appears odd for a group whose stated mission includes the desire to help youth affected by drug use, both directly and indirectly. Alcohol is the #1 most abused drug, and alcohol kills. The temporary permit being requested is a privilege, not a right. I strongly believe in second chances. I also believe in accountability, doing the right thing, and apologizing when wrong. I am curious how the previous interactions with the Kent County Liquor Inspector have gone within the last year. There was an incident fall of 2022. Was the county liquor inspector welcomed in when they stopped out to the site? Were they turned away? Was there an apologetic tone? Was there a contriteness to the reception? I understand they were warned, and so when a warning comes out, that's typically not, you got close to violating the liquor laws. They actually violated the liquor laws, again, within the last year. This site is unique in many ways. The two most prominent are that the application that are applicable to this conversation are: the building site is a commercial-like property in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Don't know if you've been out there. It's the old American Legion site. But the other piece is there is an active liquor license for that site that's held.
No, there's not. That was turned in. There
It was.
There
Really?
was, but the American
Okay.
Legion turned that in.
Very interesting.
Correct.
Okay. My information was as of late July, so it must have been subsequent to that.
It was recent, but it was turned in.
Well, it still applies, because during the spring and early summer of this year, there was a liquor license on that site. it was just turned in recently, that may have afforded Kate, the Kent Alcohol Tobacco Enforcement, to go on site for periodic inspections. Be curious to know if during other events there was a site visit. They have numerous late evening events. In fact, there was one just last Friday that their parking lot was completely full. I have no idea whether any violations have happened during that time, but if the violation happened in December and nobody has been on site to inspect during any of the other events, how do we know if they're continuing to follow the law and do the right thing? Trust but verify, if you will. I do request that a temporary permit not be issued to a group that within the last year has been warned regarding the alcohol. And I'll leave it at that point and let you vote, and maybe I'll come back later and follow up.
Mr. President, I
Yes.
do have some comments of a technical nature regarding the application, because there do appear to be some technical defects on it. I think all those are curable by the applicant, but I wanted to bring that to the board's attention if the board feels this is the appropriate time.
Sure.
For liquor licenses, the applicants are actually people, not entities. An entity can have a liquor license, but it's in the name of actual members or people. So with respect to the three applicants, applicant number one says Menary's Dream Alliance. It doesn't say a person. Now, there is a signature of it looks like a Vanessa, it's hard to read, Hadaway Truxon, maybe, but technically this should be amended or revised. So the first applicant is not the entity, rather it's an individual associated with the entity. Next, with respect to the statement of the owner, it has signature of owner and print name. It looks like Paul II III. Then below it says entity Menary's Dream Alliance authorized agent. And I believe that's Ms. Truxon again. So there appears to be some confusion. And her title says Parent Engagement Coordinator. If it's an entity and the entity signing off, the person on behalf of the entity should be an officer, a director, someone with authority rather than someone who may be an employee. So that would need to be clarified. And third, with respect to the notary, for the owner of the premises, it appears that the notary was not sure what to do, because it says, before the subscriber, a notary of the state of Maryland, personally appeared Rebecca Miller and acknowledged the execution of the following statement to be a true act, and that's attested by Rebecca Miller, Notary Public. So the Notary Public doesn't attest to the act of the Notary Public. The Notary Public would attest to the act of the applicant or the owner. So the notary portion of this is defective. So all of these are curable. My recommendation is that you could either, if you're inclined to approve the application, you could either approve it subject to these revisions being made, or because the event is not until September, you could continue this to next week, give the owner a week to make these revisions, and then vote on it next week.
Well, Tom, that's kind of exactly what I was thinking when start with, there were some questions that the gentleman, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't get your name.
Eric, cauliflower?
If Mr.
Cauliflower, just like the vegetable. You can say
I'm going
it.
to call
It's
you
okay.
Eric for the time
Please,
being.
that's great.
But I think Eric deserves a right to have his questions answered.
Yes.
I'm not sure that we are the appropriate people. What I would do is say that, as you pointed out, the event is not till September the 16th.
Yes.
September the 16th, and there's time to do this. I would suggest that you have a conversation with our liquor inspector, who is seated in the back of the room, maybe having a time to talk with her,
Okay.
get your questions answered. That'll give Memory's Dream an opportunity to clean up the problems that our attorneys found with the application, and we'll put it on next week's agenda. And maybe by that time, you'll have your questions answered, and we can go from there, one way or the other.
Sounds good. The other
that-
thing I questioned, and I will follow up with the liquor inspector, is the tip certification required for such an event? I do know that it's required in Kent County for the manager on duty at a regular establishment, but this is a special permit, so I don't know those requirements either.
She'd be the better one to
Absolutely.
ask. I think it is, to be quite honest with you. I know we have the Lions Club, and I'm a member of that. We have to have somebody that's tip certified on site when we put in for a special. Anyhow, she's the one she's the proper one to. So for now, we're going to put this one, we're going to table this application, and hopefully we'll get everything straight, and then we can have another conversation in a week's time. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, then we're going to take the Memory's Dream Alliance, our application off the table.
Right, you're gonna postpone it.
We're going to postpone that for, right now, we're going to deal with Kent County Chamber of Commerce's beer, wine, and liquor dated of September 23rd. And again, if anyone would like to speak for or against that application, please feel free to do so. There being no one available nobody wanting to comment on that one, I'll entertain a motion to approve or disapprove that.
I just have a question for Mr. Yeager real quick. Have you had a chance to look at the application that they submitted?
I have on this, the only concern that I have with this one, with respect to the owner of the premises, it appears that the Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring the event, and that the person that signed off as the owner of the premises is Megan Livy. And my belief, and it looks like Megan Livy signed this on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. I think we need some clarification, because if the alcohol sales are going to be on the street, the 200 block of High Street, Memorial Plaza, if they're not in the building owned by the Chamber of Commerce, the town of Chestertown would be the appropriate signatory, and typically the town signs off on these, but this one might be appropriate to also postpone a week so we can get clarification that it's going to be in the street, and if it is, that the town of Chestertown signs off.
Very good. I would agree with that as well.
So I'll make a motion that we postpone all of these until the proper applications are in order.
Has there been motion made to postpone both of these applications until next, or until everything's taken care of? Do I have a second? Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Tom, you're also up for the public hearing, very short public hearing we have coming up.
Yes, Mr. President, and this is on Code Home Rule Bill CHR, Bill number 4, 2023. With your permission, I will read into the record the notice of this public hearing. Code Home Rule Bill number 4, 2023, introduced by Ronald H. Fithian, President of the Board of County Commissioners for Kent County, Maryland, an act to amend Chapter 152 Taxation, Article 10, Residential Sprinkler Property Tax Credit of the Code of Public Local Laws of Kent County, Maryland. The purpose of this amendment is to extend the expiration date of a real property tax credit when a sprinkler system is identified. A hearing will be held on August 22nd, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room, R. Clayton Mitchell Jr. Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. The agenda for the meeting will be published online 24 hours in advance of the meeting at kentcounty.com/commissioners/meeting-agenda. Citizens are encouraged to participate in the public hearing process. If you require communications assistance, please contact the County Commissioner's Office at 410-778-4600 and press 4, or visit Maryland Relay at mdrelay.org, no longer than noon on Friday, August 18th, 2023. A complete copy of the proposed legislative bill is available in the Commissioner's Office, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and on the county's website at kentcounty.com/commissioners/draft-legislation. This is by order of the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Sandra M. Blackiston, clerk, and it was published in the Kent County News on August 10th, 2023. Did anybody sign up to testify for this? And the reason why I asked that, Mr. President, is given the nature of this legislation, if nobody has signed up to testify, my recommendation would be that we could suspend the reading of the procedures for testifying.
No one has signed the testimony log.
And Ms. Williams was not available this morning, but I can give a brief summary if you're interested.
Sure.
Okay, wonderful. So in 2019, Code Home Rule 6-2019 was introduced. This is a residential sprinkler tax credit. It was passed on January 21st, 2020, and went into effect March 6th of 2020. The tax credit currently expires on December 31st, 2023, and this new bill, the proposed Code Home Rule 4-2023, extends the credit to December 31st, 2027. So this would be for an additional 4 years. And the reason Kent County even entertained this back in 2019 is because of the International Business Code mandating the sprinklers in new homes. For the first 4 years of this program, 26 applications, which means new homes, took advantage of the credit, and so this defers up to about $5,000 worth of the installation of the sprinkler system. It gives a tax credit for the next couple of years until the $5,000 has been consumed.
As I recall, and Ms. Heller, correct me if I'm wrong, but originally when the mandates for the sprinklers came in, we sought a waiver or had a waiver so they weren't
Correct.
required because of the cost. Then when we were told that we cannot issue a waiver, that's when we did the tax credit.
Correct,
And all this is doing, it's not changing anything other than the expiration date for the tax credit.
correct. It extends it another 4 years.
And we asked, this was imposed by the state.
Correct.
It was a
Correct.
regulation put in place by the state that you had to have these sprinkler systems. And it started out that, you're right, Tom, they allowed us to, if you went in to build a new home, you could sign a waiver that you didn't want a sprinkler system.
Right.
In your home, and you didn't have to do it.
Right.
Then the state come back and passed it to where it was mandatory that you had to do it whether you wanted to or not. And it was their way of at least giving some relief, because it's adding an extra cost to the price of a new home. So we thought, well, if the state's not gonna allow us to get out of it, at least we can give this $5,000 savings and the first $5,000 in property taxes to offset at least some of the expense.
Yes.
So that's, and that was done, and that now it's getting ready to come to an end unless we renew it,
Correct.
right?
I think the tax credit extension, or the tax credit of $5,000 has to be used within 3 years.
Correct.
In light of what Mrs. Heller and I and the commissioners have said, is there anybody now that wishes to speak for or against the legislation?
Then I'll entertain a motion to approve. No,
Well,
I
you
guess
close
we
the
don't,
this public hearing.
to start with, we're not here to vote on this thing, we're just here to have the public hearing.
Yes.
And as you pointed out, we can take written comments till sometime Friday.
Yes.
Friday at noon.
Okay,
Friday at
all
noon,
right.
and then your next legislative session, you would then vote on it.
Then I'm gonna entertain a motion that we adjourn the public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second. Got a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye, all opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Now we have a proclamation. Nivek Johnson, I don't see him, but I see Miss Arlene Ringgold Johnson here. How are you today?
I'm good, how are you all?
Good. Would you like to say something? Now, we're going to read this proclamation aloud here for you, but if you wanted to say a few words first, please feel free to do so.
I would. I'd like to say that this was our 10th anniversary for Legacy Day. The purpose of Legacy Day is to celebrate African American history here in Kent County. And the more that we work into discovering different African American contributions, African Americans have made tremendous contributions to this county. It was built on our labor. And there's a lot of history that goes along with the labor. There's a lot of entrepreneurs, private businessmen, landowners, civic organizations that were founded by African Americans. And I would encourage all of you, if you have not been to Legacy Day, that you come to Legacy Day. This year we had approximately 2,500 people that came into the town. It is great for tourism, and it's great for the community as well. Many of the community members that grew up in the area, they come back each year because it's a sense of pride. We are recognizing what we as African Americans have contributed to our county. So, that's...
Thank you. And Commissioner Nickerson is going to read the proclamation.
I didn't know whether she had something she wanted to say.
Yes. Linda Reed is on the committee. I'd also like to say that it's an extremely diverse committee, and it is also the crowd and congregation. It's like one of the very few diverse crowds in our county, and it's something that we need to look at in terms of continuing with crowds such as that, where racial dividing lines are decreased.
Very good. This is a proclamation for Miss Airlie Ringgold Johnson, Legacy Day, August 19th through the 21st, 2023. Whereas Legacy Day brings hundreds of Kent County citizens of all races, ethnicities together every August to celebrate African American history and culture. And whereas Airlie Ringgold Johnson has provided the indispensable leadership that has made Legacy Day a success and has furthered its expansion from a parade, an exhibit, and a Saturday night dance party to a weekend of celebration and activities. And whereas Airlie Ringgold Johnson has contributed her time and talents to honor her heritage and to bring awareness to Kent County community, including her work as a community historian at Washington College's Star Center that helps uncover and preserve local African American history. And whereas Legacy Day will celebrate its 10th anniversary on the weekend of August 19th through August 21st, and now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Kent County, do hereby proclaim August 19th through the 21st, 2023, as Airlie Ringgold Johnson Legacy Day, and call upon the citizens of Kent County to join together in support of programs sponsored by Legacy Day to celebrate and preserve our shared history and culture. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, member, and John F. Price, member. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do. We have booklets. These are our souvenir booklets. We have a copy for each one of
Yeah, I
you.
would think.
There's a large exhibit down at the Historical Society that will be up for the month of August. I encourage you to also visit that as well.
Would you like to have a picture taken with your proclamation?
Sure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Another one? Excellent, thank you.
All right, thank you again. Mike Moulds, Public Works Director.
I get to say good morning this time. I wanted to thank whoever made the typo and got me up on the agenda so far. The first item you have on your agenda is a request to approve advertising a local newspaper for a public hearing on amendment to the Kent County Comprehensive Water and Sewage Plan for an addition of the county's toll park to the existing Galena sewer service area. And this would be at a regular scheduled meeting of the commissioners. Notice of the time published 2 successive weeks. First publication of notice appearing at least 14 days prior to the hearing. What did we lose, Sandra? I don't know what date she picked. Basically, the county applied for program open space funding to design and construct a public restroom facility at Toll Park. It includes a pavilion. The project proposes a water well supply, and we would have a grinder pump system that would connect to the county sewer line that runs down across the property there on 213. That area, when the sewer system was extended and put into the plan, didn't include Toll Park and that denied access line. So we have to go through and do the amendment to the plan. So it was sent out, Planning Commission comments, sent to the state. State went through its clearinghouse review. The only real comment they had was that they wanted town of Galena to indicate that there's capacity for the 1 EDU that we need for the restrooms, which they've provided as an attachment to your agenda item. So we're basically requesting a motion to approve the public hearing notice. Any questions?
I just, for people that don't know, the toll park doesn't have a restroom. They have
Porta potties.
porta pots there. So I guess when this was done, it was in hopes to obviously make it a little nicer for maybe more people who use the pavilion, maybe not, but it'll certainly upgrade the facility.
Absolutely. And get more use out of it.
Right, exactly.
Fields
I
and
guess
things
that's
like
what I'm
that.
trying to
People
say.
are more
Yeah.
amenable having those kind of facilities.
Well, and I'm all in favor of this, but brings back the fact that we're getting ready to hook up to with a denied access line, which we've had this conversation for over a span of 2 years when it, so there is a way that you can hook up to a denied access line if you go through the proper procedures.
Yeah, we have to go through the procedures. And again, it's the consent and support, because ultimately, once we do the hearing, you'll approve the amendment, sign off on it. Then it gets sent to the state, because they've only provided draft comments. And then they have to approve it on their end. So it's a 2-part step. So we first get their opinion on what they think about the thing, and then move that ahead. So you have these other entities that get to weigh in on it in exchange for the grant monies they provide to put these facilities in.
So would the process be the same? I'm assuming, I know which one you're talking about.
Well,
Would the
and that-
process be the same for public and private? In other words, a private citizen?
Process isn't any different.
Okay.
You have to go through that, yes.
Okay.
And with the other one we've talked about, we got comments back from the state, so the process had moved forward, but we haven't been able to address those comments.
Gotcha. That's
And we had went through
That's right.
this, we did go through, like, our planning commission weighed in on it, if I'm not mistaken, and they had no problem with it. And, so when you hear the word denied access line, it's not right away, it's no. There's a procedure you can go through to
To request approval to connect, yes.
It should really be called a restricted access line. That's what it should be called, but people in the state, they, you know.
Probably a state terminology that they like to discourage connections, so they call it denied access. So, all right,
So I'd like to make a motion to approve a public hearing notice of an amendment to the Kent County Comprehensive Water and Sewage Plan for the county's Toll Park property at Tax Map 7, Parcel 357, to include it in the town of Galena existing sewer service.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Second item on the agenda is approval of funding to fulfill an agreement to pay a contractor for installation of a sewer extension. This was a sewer extension on Lovers Lane. Due to delays in parts, the work couldn't be completed until after July 1st, where we got into fiscal year FY24. So the finance department notified us that we had to come to you for approval for FY24 contingency funds in order to make payment to the contractor. The work is completed, the property is connected. So we have the invoice from the contractor that was hired by the county to do the work. The original FY23 funding was contingency funding, so we have to come back and ask for it, because that money magically disappeared in FY23.
It expired.
But it was, and it was cheaper than what we had this year.
Yes.
By
Yep.
quite a bit, yeah.
Yep, we did good with that.
Entertain a motion then. There's no other questions.
You know how I am about contingency planning.
Well, and to try to defend my honor, I will note that the project that we did for the K1 and K2 bridges out there came in under budget by $41,000, and probably about $30,000 in saved engineering fees, which the finance department projected would still be paid back in FY23. So that money now can float over to FY24 to be able to cover the contingency. I'm thinking of you, John.
I know. So I'll make a motion to approve contingency funding in the amount of $10,200 for payment to Richard Nicholson for completion of a sewer service line along Lovers Lane in the Eastville Sewer Service District.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you. I had
And this
one,
was something that we asked you to do. This was something that we approved for you to do a while back.
oh, yes.
Yes.
Definitely. Yep, consent. I had one other item, just looking for some consensus. Our residential disposal permits, we need to go and make arrangements to print out new ones. From the discussions, what we're proposing to do is to issue that for 3-year period. So we want to get that printed, but there's a consensus to go ahead and continue to do the disposal permits at no cost, but now they would be good for 24 to 2026.
I was going to raise a question about this, and I brought this up before, and Commissioner Price may be able to shed some light on this, but I believe there's a statute in the motor vehicle code about what you can put on a windshield, where you have to have them being some kind of transparent or opaque or something. And that's a concern that I have, is that our sticker may technically not be in conformance with that provision of the motor vehicle code.
There was some discussion when we first did that. I know Marty was back and forth on it, but it's in the lower corner there, and you know how many other places that use those stickers and stuff like that. So I don't know that anybody would ever pull us over
Now, I
for it.
think if you were to put it in the driver's line of sight in the middle of the windshield, you got a problem.
Right.
I mean, you're not even supposed to hang anything from your rearview mirror. But it is in the lower left-hand corner on the driver's side. And usually, on the vehicles that I have, my sticker's down in, right at the very bottom, which is where Kent County tells you to put it. Potentially, I guess, if you're looking for probable cause to stop a vehicle for whatever reason, I guess they could use that, but it's kind of petty.
Yeah. I tend to look at like the windshield
Bring it
wiper.
up, but maybe we can,
kind
as
of petty, but-
courtesy, advise people when they put the stickers to kind of put them in the,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, like
outside the line of sight.
Pennsylvania, my registration sticker has to go right there on that kind of thing when I had a car up there. The other thing we tend to look at is the wiper area. If you look at where the wiper has to cover it, that's your open area. If there's other areas that get dirty, you can't see out of it. As long as you've got that coverage there, you've got the visual for it, so.
I do appreciate the 3 years, because I know we talked about it before.
Right.
I personally thought it was a little silly that we're doing it every year, because, so it's nice that at least it's gonna be for 3 years this time.
That'll ease us out. I think the success of the program in terms of reducing a lot of the costs we were seeing with these tipping fees, with people coming in that shouldn't be coming into the landfill, so it's been successful. And those savings were covering the cost of the printing of the stickers. And this will make it easier for everybody to last for that. So,
And I know I've said it before, but our landfill is, if you gotta go to something to get rid of trash and junk, that's about as nice a facility, I think, and nicely kept, that I've ever been to, and it's a nice facility, and it's well kept, I guess is what I wanted to
I
say,
appreciate that.
you know.
All right,
So
so,
there's no cost for the sticker,
Nope.
just for the coupon books.
yes, coupon books are still $60 for 15 coupons, $5 a coupon. I know Shelley had talked about some discussions about fees and our different things that we're sort of pulling that kind of stuff together, but that may be some conversation. I think in 2020, it was $50, it went to $55. 2022 went from $55 to $60. So if there's some interest in wanting to do that there. The coupons only cover about 10% of the cost of operation of the Nicholson facility. That revenue is about $100,000, and we got about $1 million in cost. That's not including the Nicholson treatment plant, so.
Mike, this is just out of curiosity. I went there one time to use this, and I handed the attendant the coupon, and he said, and he knew me, but he said, where's your book at? I said, well, why you gotta see my book? He said, I gotta see the book. I'm told I have to look at the book to make sure that coupon come out of that book.
Right.
I said, for what? He said, because people are, I guess, copying these, counterfeiting these coupon books.
Exactly. No, we've caught.
Really,
some people
that's
doing
really
it.
happened, did it really?
Yes, we get a few of them. I remember one guy came in and Marty recognized it, and we checked it out, and I think we might even got the address to the sheriff's department, and somebody went and visited him, and he admitted he did it, and his wife wasn't too happy with what he did.
How about
That's what
that?
they did, yeah, I know. So, but that's the reason they have it.
Look, when he said it, I thought, you're kidding me, nobody's doing that. He said, oh, yeah, they do. Oh, yeah.
All right, any other questions?
Albert, you don't do it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bonnie? Bonnie Pearsall is our Kent Alcohol and Tobacco Enforcement Officer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everyone? The first that I have is an alcohol beverage license compliance check. I conducted an inspection compliance check on an establishment and found that the establishment didn't have anyone on the premise that could provide me proof of their alcohol awareness, which is TIPS certification. This is a violation of the Maryland Alcohol Beverage Annotated Code, Section 24-1903. A written warning was issued to this establishment for being non-compliant. The next item I have was the rechecks to the 3 establishments that failed their tobacco compliance check. This time, they all 3 complied, and they all passed the compliance check. I did one additional standard inspection on an establishment, and they sold to underage. A citation was issued to this establishment and a fine of $300. And this is their 3rd time that they have sold to underage within a 24-hour month period. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you. Next up is Ms. Carla Gerber, Deputy Director of Planning, Housing, and Zoning.
Good morning. I am here looking for your approval of a 3-year agreement that will upgrade and enhance our GIS capabilities. This is something we had budgeted for, and in kind of doing the research to bring this to you, have realized that sort of using the Esri products, while we have been using them for many years, is also sort of the product that our 911 system depends on. And we've got other agencies that have started to develop resources using these software applications as well. So.
Any questions?
I have none.
I'll make a motion to accept and sign the Small Government Enterprise Agreement with Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Rosemary Granillo, she is the Director of Kent County's Local Management Board.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here to request your approval for the Safe FY24 Safe Summers application. We have submitted this application to the Division of Children and Youth Services at the Governor's Office for Crime Prevention, Children, Youth, and Victim Services. And this funding was, it's one-time funding. We weren't really, it was kind of a surprise to be awarded this. And we do have an award letter, and now we're kind of catching up with the application and the contract to come afterwards, but it needs to be spent by September 30th. So this is funding that the state is looking to, get into the community, and we are fortunate that they have verbally approved several budgets on contracts that we already had. So does that make sense? Do you want me to explain more about this program?
Is there any local match?
It's basically a match, yeah. We, in January, we discussed these safe and healthy spaces for youth to be able to gather, socialize, learn skills, and have events and activities. We were able to award them small awards, like $4,000, $10,000, et cetera. And then with this funding, we're able to really make those awards much more robust. And so our vendors have agreed to, and they submitted budgets that the state says pass the muster, and we will be able to expend these funds by the 30th as proposed.
So while there is a match, those funds were already allocated. There's no new money
Right.
being requested here of the county. This is just additional dollars that came from the state.
Yes.
Well, that's a no-brainer then.
Now we entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the FY 2024 Safe Summers Grant application.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we
I'll
have
send you the invites to the good parties.
Mr. Pete Landon who is our Director of Office of Emergency Services. How are we doing, Pete?
Good morning, fine, sir. Good morning. I have 3 items before you. They all involve the same vendor, so I'll go through each one of them separately. That way it won't get confusing. I'd like to start by saying that all 3 of these expenditures were accounted for during budgeting, so they're not new expenses, they're recurring expenses. The very first one is a Motorola Solutions Service Agreement, and this agreement provides network security monitoring, technical support, dispatch service, preventive maintenance, security service updates, and on-site 911 center response if necessary. The cost for this was already budgeted. There is a difference in the estimate of $3,727.44 that, and any overage can be assumed by our budgeting process. So it's not an expense. We'll just save money in other cost centers to pay for it. The second solution, software implementation and upgrade service agreement, again, is a recurring service agreement that provides dispatch center software and implementation on upgrades and on-site 911 center infrastructure response if necessary. This is actually for the software that allows us to connect to the state network. So we have protecting the network, we have the software that allows us to hook to the network. And again, it was budgeted, however, this is $2,672.14 over budget. And a lot of this is because the estimates for fiscal year '23 were being used during the budgeting process, and the vendor raised the prices. And it's a sole source vendor. They're the only ones that can provide it. The third one is the Motorola Solutions Computer-Aided Dispatch Services Renewal. And that's an annual recurring service between the county commissioners and Motorola Solutions that provides dispatch center computer-aided dispatch, server maintenance, and upgrades. And this is actually an IT-recommended procurement providing full service management of the CAD system that both fire and EMS and police use. The cost of that is actually 17 cents under budget. I would recommend acceptance of these 3 annual Motorola Solutions service agreements, and I'm open to any questions that anyone might have.
Any questions?
It's necessary to run your operation
Yes.
and for the citizens of the county, and it's something that's been in place. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept all 3 of the Motorola Solutions quotes, maintenance agreements.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Mr. Jim Miller, Director of Human Resources, and Jen White.
Good morning, gentlemen and ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I asked Jen to join me this morning. The 4 items that you have in front of you are recruitment items, and since Jen was the primary recruiter on all and did all the interviewing with the departments, I thought if there was any questions that she'd be in the best position to respond. So, as I said, I think we have 4 of them for you. The first one, I'm not sure what order they showed up in your notes. The first one was the request to fill a part-time EMTB vacancy with the candidate recommended in the notes that you have before you.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended candidate for the conditional employment offer.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. The second one is also another part-time EMTB vacancy. This is the second of, I think, the 4 that you'll see today. Again, our recommendation is to approve for a conditional employment offer the candidate brought forth today.
I'll make a motion again to approve the recommended candidate for a conditional offer.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. The third part-time EMTB vacancy, our recommendation is to a conditional offer of employment for the candidate as presented.
I'll make a motion again to approve the recommended candidate for a conditional employment offer.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. The fourth one is,
Jim,
I'm
if I
sorry.
may interrupt, we don't have a 4th one on the agenda.
yeah, I think my numbering, I think the fourth one I was looking at is the fourth vacancy, but it's not the fourth EMT. I think that's on me.
We have one more opening available that
Okay.
we have chosen not to fill at this time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. That's why I bring Jen to this, so that she can actually keep me straight. It's a big job. Jen, go ahead.
We still have applicants that we are interviewing for the fourth one. And at this time, we're not ready to present a candidate for the fourth opening.
Did you have a pretty good applicant pool? I saw the,
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We had a total, I believe it was 10 candidates that applied, from various counties, actually, that were interested, so.
I do have one question about this one. The,
Are we looking at the third item for
I'm
Jim or
looking
the
at the fourth
fourth?
item.
Okay.
Or haven't we haven't gotten to that yet.
Yep, right.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, the fourth one that you're having in front of you, and not the fourth
Yeah.
EMT, but this is the administrative specialist position, and this is a combined position amongst emergency services, the detention center, and the police accountability board. The documentation that you have and the draft job description shows how the position is being parsed out amongst the three departments with joint supervisory responsibilities. And at this point, we're recommending that you approve a conditional employment offer for the candidate as presented. But, Mr. President, you said you had a question.
Yeah, one question. I see that, not that we don't hire out of county, because we do. When we need to, we do. The one question I have, I do see a couple people who are Kent County people that it says met minor qualifications, and they both says yes, but they weren't scheduled an interview. How do we determine who gets an interview?
Jen, do you want to
If
speak
they
to the
all,
candidates?
and it appears when I look at this spreadsheet, everybody met the minimum requirement, but there was only a certain amount that was given a scheduled an interview.
So some of that could be due to when we offered them a interview, they opted not to. There are a few candidates on there that were interviewing for the additional admin position with the sheriff's office and opted to not participate in an interview for this particular position due to them being considered for that one, and that was their first choice. Or they were.
Well, let me ask, let me follow up with that. Individual 8 and 9 on your spreadsheet.
Yes.
If you have it. They both met minimum requirements, but yet they were not given a scheduled interview. Now, you're telling me that that was their choice?
No, so those ones are, so the next ones, those, as I was gonna say, some were, as they were screened, they were, we chose not to move forward with an interview due to how they, screened, how they answered their screening questions.
Generally, that occurs when they've met the minimum requirements for the position, but during the pre-screening interviews that Jen, or in some cases Barb, will conduct, we find that just because they met the minimum requirements, they weren't in the top 3 or 4 candidates, or that the interview identified issues that we felt would exclude them from the interview process. It's almost a weeding out process where we go from the massive group of everybody to the minimum, those who meet the minimum requirements, to the pre-screening interview where we narrow the field down to the best qualified candidates. Those individuals come in for interviews with Jen and the department director. So it's really a couple-layered screening process that we go through to make sure that we're bringing in the best possible candidates. And we're also not, frankly, wasting the candidate's time or the department's time in looking at a candidate or interviewing a candidate that we don't think is going to be one of our recommended hires anyway.
And to add on to that, sometimes when the applicants apply, they do not read the full description. I will tell you, some of the applicants were not aware that this was a position shared across multiple departments. They thought it was just a one-stop kind of deal where they were only going to be utilized in Office of Emergency Services instead of being shared amongst the Accountability Board and the Detention Center. And that would also eliminate them from the pool if they didn't feel that that was a fit for them as well.
Okay.
But as Jim said, we go through their entire work history that they provide and screen for anything that would not be in the best interest of the county.
Very good. Okay. I just would like to see us give a lot of emphasis to the local people to make sure that they at least get an opportunity. I'd rather see, personally, I'd rather see you waste an hour or so giving a couple interviews if they're local people, just to take a second look at them. Now, we hire out of county all the time, but
Well, we'll certainly,
my first
we will
allegiance
certainly
is
bear
here.
that in mind as we go forward. As you know, over the past several months, we've really changed the recruiting process from what it had been prior to me coming on board and then Jen coming on board. So it's still a work in progress, but we've made a lot of improvement in how we're sourcing candidates and how we're bringing forth candidates for the departments to consider and then for the board to consider.
And Mr. President, just so you know, we have interviewed both of those individuals for previous admin jobs, which also contributed to our recommendation not to bring them in for another interview.
I hear you. Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended candidate for a conditional employment offer.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Jen. I think the next item on my agenda,
The alcohol and drugs policy?
we have actually two policies to bring forth to the commissioners today. The first is the revision to what had been called the alcohol and drug abuse policy, which with the legalization of cannabis on July 1st, that policy required revision in any sense. So we've made a pretty massive change to the language of the policy. We've renamed the policy to legal and illegal drug use and testing to reflect what we've been doing in terms of testing for pre-employment or also for-cause testing. So the language is fairly significantly changed from what you would have seen in the original policy that the commissioners approved in, I guess, 2017, I think was the last time. This gives us this puts us on track with what, as a county, we need to be doing in terms of recognizing that cannabis is now legal. I've described it as adding cannabis to this is really not dramatically different than what we had done with alcohol in the past. You can't use it on the job. You can't come to the job impaired. You can't sell it. You can't bring it. It's the same as we've done forever with alcohol. We've simply acknowledged that cannabis is now legal, and we need to follow the same sort of restrictions on our employees in terms of what they can and cannot do on their job or on the county property.
You simply, I think, not restricted it just to illegal drugs, since marijuana is legal in certain circumstances.
Yeah, and that's why we went with it.
Alcohol is legal, but you can't show up for work drunk.
Exactly, yeah, and that's why we changed actually the title of the policy to make it legal and illegal drugs, to recognize alcohol and cannabis are both legal. Prescription drugs are legal if they're in the possession of the person they were prescribed for. So we've tried to make those distinctions in the policy as well.
But you're saying that, like, Albert should put it out before he comes into the building. I mean, he's allowed, it's a legal drug, but he really ought to put it out before not supposed to.
He should put it out before he gets, before, definitely before he gets to the property. But he should put it out with enough advance notice so that he doesn't come to work impaired.
Yeah. Respectfully, I would recommend that Commissioner Nickerson
have
be,
weed on your
not
breath.
be impaired when he comes to these meetings. What he does on his own time, I don't really care, but, you know, in these meetings, I'd like him to be fully cognizant of what he's doing. Well, they're really picking on you
I was gonna
this
say, I don't know
morning,
whether,
aren't they?
I don't know whether the cannabis has any effect on that with me at all. I'm assuming we're doing this because we have to, or now, at Mako, I did go to that cannabis forum, I'm gonna call it, which I left there.
Yeah, so was
I
I.
left there a little more confused than when I went in, to be totally honest with you, because the state, which is supposed to be giving us direction, has zero direction at all for us and what's coming down the.
I attended that same session,
Yeah,
and frankly, I thought Kent County had a clearer picture of what we were doing than what I heard in that session that day. I was surprised. The state seemed to be kind of all over the place.
Yeah,
with it.
absolutely.
Although they seemed to be happy that there was going to be revenue generated. Other than that, I'm not sure. what they-
5% of some.
5% of something
Of something
somewhere.
at the bottom, 5% of
Right.
something at the bottom, so I would stand here and be ready for a check, you know,
Right.
from the state. but-
5% of the 9% sales tax. However, if it's in a municipality, the county and municipality have to share the 5% of 9%.
So we might get 2.5% of 9% of some number that nobody can identify.
Exactly.
Because we
Sounds
don't
like-
have any facilities.
Sounds like a well-thought-out law to me.
I think Jim
I
summed it
don't
up.
make the news, that is reported here.
Right, yeah.
That essentially, because marijuana is no longer a quote illegal drug, we've removed the word illegal, or we've added legal
Yes.
there, and we're essentially treating it as alcohol, where you can't show up for work with alcohol in your breath, you can't get drunk on the job, you can't be impaired. The same way with marijuana, you can't show up with weed on your breath, and you can't be impaired, and you can't smoke it while you're on the job,
Yeah.
or consume it, I guess.
We've tried to keep it as straightforward as possible in those regards. Some of the other
Sorry,
changes
Al.
we made in the language had to do with, the other policy went to great lengths to describe the credentials of the medical review officer, of the lab that we use, and the lab techs that we use. And it didn't really seem appropriate to us that our own HR policy needed to document the CV of all those people, so we just removed it.
The only reason I'm picking on Albert today is because he went alligator hunting last week, and I figure anybody goes alligator hunting's gotta be high on something.
Did you catch something?
We did okay, yes.
Look, I was raised in Baltimore City. That, the alligator hunting thing doesn't really,
I think on a more serious note, because of the increased use of the substance, there's going to be more research and development on testing and trying to come up with some type of breathalyzer like we have with alcohol. How long it's gonna take to get that, who knows? But I think that's, for obvious reasons, that's gonna need to be done, and that's in the works.
and certainly from the session that the state held, they don't have a clue when technology is going to catch up to the fact that it's now legal, so.
Right, I thought the police officer who spoke and gave us the statistics about the weapons and everything, I thought that was very telling.
Did a great
Yeah, that was, for me, that was sort of the best part of the presentation.
So I would say, in response to your question, President Fithian, is that what this policy does is it does exactly what Jim said, and it incorporates what needs to be incorporated because cannabis is now recreationally legal. But it also streamlines the policy as, even without that aspect, makes it a little clearer, easier to understand, clearer guidance, and I think that it's a really solid policy at this point.
I think with what he has to work with currently, the resources that are available for testing, he's probably done the best job he can in putting this policy together.
Thank you.
I am concerned that we have an employee on Sunday or Saturday is out smoking some weed legally, comes to work, and he or she is fine, but they get behind the wheel of one of our county vehicles, and there's a real serious accident involving a fatality of another person. They're required to take a blood test in that type of scenario. And when they take that blood test, it's going to show that marijuana's in their system.
Yeah.
And I think it's a liability, because we're not going to be able to say, well, or the county's not going to be able to defend or legit whether they consumed it legally off duty or whether they consumed it on duty, but it's going to give the appearance that our driver was under the influence. Now, there's no way that I know to even address that issue, but it's going to become a legal problem.
Because it stays, that
30 days.
30 days, as much as 30 days.
And I
so-
guess in that regard, if somebody was out drinking until the bars closed at 2 and they reported to work at 7, they might blow positive as well.
That's correct.
They could.
So we'd have the same issue, but I agree with you.
That's correct.
It's going to be, it's potentially a problem. I'm hoping at some point between technology and our medical review officer, they're going to be able to nail this down a little better for us, but it is a risk. And that's why we have, we have put into the policy that if one of the supervisors thinks that one of their staff is a little off base some morning, that they contact Human Resources, they bring the person to HR, we make a determination jointly to send the person for testing. The previous policy had the department supervisor taking the person directly to testing and kind of bypassing HR. And frankly, I haven't seen it done that way anywhere else. HR has always been involved in that because ultimately it could turn into a disciplinary matter for the employee, and you want HR on the front end of it and not the tail end of it. But you're right. At the moment, we're all the technology is way behind the law.
Yeah, the difference between the alcohol and the marijuana scenario is somebody was out all night drinking, they come in the morning with alcohol on their breath. We can do a breathalyzer or a blood test, and you can take a look at the level of the alcohol, and there are generally accepted scientific standards as to what that level means with respect to impairment. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist with respect to marijuana. So then it becomes subjective. Somebody has marijuana in their system. Are they impaired or are they not impaired? And that's where you mentioned the technology has not caught up with these changes. When these things happen, there's going to be a lot of uncertainties.
And the state has taken measures. Apparently, they have a new program that takes about 3 weeks to be certified, intensive training, where at the end of the training, they are an expert to evaluate behaviors.
And they have about 200 of
And they
these
have
in the
200.
entire state.
They have 200 of them in the entire state.
It's very limited
Very.
resource.
So hopefully, while the science is catching up with that they can test, they can train more people to be certified.
We do the best with what we got.
So we have an employee that we suspect is using marijuana while working. And short of finding the marijuana or the paraphernalia that they're using in their possession, how are you going to be able to prove that they're using marijuana while they're working?
Yeah. I think if I had the answer to that one, I'd be making a whole lot of money selling it to all the states. I think it's going to be a function of whether or not, for me, it boils down to, is the person capable of doing their job at that time? What the reason for the impairment it could be marijuana. It could be they had a cold and they took, cough medicine with alcohol in it. It could have been alcohol. I think as an organization, rather than try to guess what's the reason, the important thing for us as an employer is to make sure that somebody who's impaired isn't out doing their job, particularly the road crews and the folks that are, people might think I'm impaired generally, but if I'm impaired and I write a bad memo, that's one thing. If somebody on the road crew makes a mistake, somebody gets hurt. So I think our fundamental responsibility is to make sure that the citizens of the county aren't at risk because of our employees. Taking the person for testing, as everybody knows, it's a crapshoot at this point. You know, could the testing reveal that the person's impaired? I guess. But I think for us, the key is now going to be if the department supervisor or the department director thinks there's an issue with a particular employee and they bring the person to HR, we make the decision jointly to put the person off duty. And then we deal with what's going on. Sometimes in my past, we would have looked at, does the person need help through an EAP? Does the person, you know, identify that they actually have a problem? You know, and you start to address that part of the employment relationship. But, you know, again, it is still going to be a crapshoot.
Is the EAP and other intervention, you know, resources part of your policy that you've written?
I think we referenced the employee assistance program in the policy. I'm
Because
fairly
that's
sure I
about the
did.
only discipline
Yeah.
procedure that you can.
Yeah, you
Apply.
mandate some conversation. Certainly, we have a functioning EAP through Cigna, through our insurance carrier, so the resources available. I think I made reference to employee assistance or other resources for the employee should there be a determination that the person's impaired or has an addiction issue, that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. We're still at the mercy of where the technology is today versus the government signing into law something that's legal without how the employers are going to handle all of it.
And I think it should be noted, I know that all of you know, but for anybody who may be listening, anybody with a DOT CDL, this does not apply.
No.
It's expressly prohibited. Cannabis is expressly prohibited. It is still illegal with the federal government, and they fall into a different category.
Yeah, and that's why there's two different testing. When we do pre-employment drug screening, cannabis has been removed from the panel because it's now legal. But that's not, as Shelley just pointed out, that's not the case if somebody is applying for a CDL, a job that requires a CDL. Their testing still includes cannabis as part of the panel because under federal law, recreational cannabis use is still illegal.
Is there an avenue, and I'm not saying that we want to take this avenue, but is there an avenue legally that we could just say we don't want any county employees participating in the cannabis?
I think we're going to run into problems there because the state of Maryland is,
That's what I-
is
that's what I-
advocating
You're gonna lose.
marijuana.
That's what I
They
figured.
are
That's what-
subsidizing, they are giving grants to people that are having marijuana businesses. They want it everywhere, they want it in every county. And so I think we'll run into, you're told you can't enact zoning that excludes it. We can't, in our land use ordinance, say we're not gonna have marijuana dispensaries or growers. Municipalities can't either. So I hear what you're saying. I have a feeling that we will
I just didn't know
have
whether
stiff
maybe
resistance if we do.
Well,
that.
I assume so, but I didn't know whether or not maybe, until they answer some of these questions or come up with some, basically, I guess we'd be kicking the can down the road.
I think we have to treat it like alcohol, saying
That's
that,
what I see.
like, you're
exactly
not
what it
supposed
is.
to show up for work with alcohol in your breath, most certainly not be impaired, and we treat marijuana the same way as we treat alcohol. And I think that's probably the best strategy we can do at this point.
Yeah, and I agree with Tom.
The only way that we could probably control it, and not that, I agree, not that we
Right.
want to do it this way, is they'd have to be paid 24 hours a day, where you can restrict them.
Right.
I even put them on payroll for 24/7, that kind of
No.
thing? Wow.
No, I'm not suggesting that.
I think if you're on call, if you have a
I
shift where
clearly
you're
misunderstood the
on call.
commissioner's comment.
Legally, let me make it very clear. But in law enforcement, that's what you had to do.
Yeah.
If you're going to restrict somebody's movement
Yep,
when they're on their own time, then they deserve to be paid.
absolutely, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
know, we're certainly not gonna do that.
No.
So,
I don't want to prepare the budget for that one.
I think you did the best you could with what you had to work with currently. It's probably gonna see some revisions as the technology improves, but, so I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-15, which will amend the currently entitled Alcohol and Drug Abuse Policy in the Employee Handbook.
Do I have a second?
I do want to second it, but I just want, for clarification, you said 15, I think it's 16.
This one's 15, the
Oh,
next
okay.
one's 16.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Then you were correct. I was wrong. I
you
stand
high?
corrected. No. No, I'm ahead.
You've been waiting for that
I
one, right?
second, yeah.
You've just been waiting to do that.
That was pretty good.
haven't you?
I knew I could observe.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Make note that Commissioner Nickerson did vote against, in favor of this.
In favor.
Thank you, gentlemen. One more policy for your consideration. This is Resolution 2023-16 for Commissioner Nickerson. We currently have a policy called Pregnancy, Parental Leave, and Lactation Policy in the current handbook. With changes in the laws that occurred as far back as 2010 and then again in 2022, we needed to make revisions to our policy and to how we would implement it. What we've done is revise the title somewhat, Pregnancy, Parental Leave, and Providing Urgent Maternal Protections for Nursing Mothers. It's generally referred to as the PUMP policy. Some places still call it the lactation policy. And what this regulation requires of employers is to make sure that employees who have the need for the first year of a newborn to pump periodically during the day, during the workday, to have time to do that and a private space in which to do that. It's tricky because the regulation doesn't really tell you how many spaces you have to have, and if you're like us with multiple buildings. Do we have to have one per building? Is it okay if we have a location at our central office and that kind of thing? It's silent on those points. What we've written into policy is to ensure that everybody, the employees and their supervisors, know that that's an expectation, that if somebody comes to them and says, I need XYZ time to do this, that they provide space for them. It can't be a bathroom. It's recommended that it be a space with running water, but that's really problematic. If you tie this policy into any policies that address accommodations, it would be an unreasonable accommodation for us to start creating buildings and rooms that met all those requirements. So what we're recommending and what we'll talk to the directors about, I think at Shelley's next senior staff meeting, is to ensure that the directors know if somebody comes to them, yes, you do have to find space for them. Excuse me. It has to be private. They have to have ample time, and we're simply going to have to work on it as we go along. Larger organizations have created separate rooms, particularly if they have a large female employee population. Where I came from, because we were 85% female populated, and probably 80% of those folks were kind of childbearing ages. We created several rooms in several of our buildings, so the room was always available. We don't have that resource here, and I'm not here recommending that we all of a sudden start creating those, but just so the department heads know if the need is presented to them, that they have to comply with it. There's another part of the regulation that says if you're a public building, you're supposed to allow the public to make use of your designated room also. We've not included that in our policy, and I've actually talked to some colleagues at other counties who haven't done it either because they don't feel they have the resources to do that. Our location here, or any of our locations, really aren't, they're public access, but not public access to the point where somebody needs to come in off the street to pump. So we haven't included that as part of the revised policy that you have in front of you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-16, which will amend the currently titled Pregnancy, Parental Leave, and Lactation Policy in the Employee Handbook.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think the next item that is on the agenda is a restructuring recommendation that I've brought forth to the commissioners. I believe everybody has the memo that I included. This dates back to mid-May and early June when one of our staff members left the department and we started recruiting.
Can I stop you for a minute?
Yes, sir.
I've looked at what you submitted as certain of the supporting documents. And what I would like to suggest that we do is that we table this for right now, because I've got questions and some concerns that I would like to have answers to. So I'd like to recommend that we table this for now.
I'm good with it.
Sure.
That's fine. When you table, you don't actually have to put that in a motion. That just basically pauses it, so you're good.
Yeah, you're just not taking any action today.
Correct.
Does this move it to the closed session item that I requested, or is it separate and
You could
apart from that?
take it up after the closed session, should you choose.
We'll take it up in open session after the closed session.
Oh, okay, gotcha, okay. All right. Then I'll wait to be called back to the table. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. All right, Shelley?
Okay, great news. First item for you is the FY 2024 Summer Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. That's the Summer SNAP program that is administered through the Department of Social Services. Back in May, you agreed that DSS could put in an application using some county funding and with matches from the state to apply for Summer SNAP program to go on. Again, it's county and state dollars combined. We were approved for that, and included in your packet is a letter that acknowledges acceptance of the program.
I'll make a motion to approve the signing of the memorandum of agreement for FY 2024 Summer Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Next, there's a letter of support that is requested from Owen Bailey, who is the Director of Land Use and Policy with Eastern Shore Land Conservancy. He visited you on the July 25th meeting and expressed that he had an intention to apply for a grant that would do an analysis to basically evaluate some historical impact of growth, impacts of sea level rise, and future impact from development and infrastructure projects. He is now requesting a letter of support for this grant. Again, he's not asking for any money from the county. He's just asking for a letter of support for the grant application that he intends on submitting elsewhere.
I think we should provide him with a letter of support personally.
Absolutely. I support
I
that.
think it could be beneficial.
I'm going to put it, you need a motion for that.
That'd be great.
I'll make a motion that we provide Owen Bailey, Director of Land and Use and Policy, Eastern Shore Land Conservancy, with a letter of support.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it.
Okay, next I have, the next item is just a report out. A letter was sent to the Maryland Department of Environment Secretary inviting her to visit the Millington wastewater treatment plant. We are hopeful that assuming she can visit, she can really appreciate the fact that it is in a floodplain, so not only is it old, it's not even BNR compliant, but it's also in a very dangerous location as far as the health of our bay. The next two items, it would be ideal to have you ratify them. They happened off-cycle. The first is a per diem liquor license application. This was for Sumner Hall Beer and Wine only, August 18, 19, 2023. This was for the Legacy Day celebration that was previously discussed. So if you could take a motion perhaps to ratify this application, that would be fantastic.
I'll make a motion to ratify the Sumner Hall Beer Wine only for August 18th and 19th, 2023.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
And the final one is St. John Catholic Church, Sacred Heart Parish. They had an event on August 20th, 2023, and they applied for a raffle permit. Again, it was received off-cycle. So if you could ratify this permit application, that would be fantastic.
I'll make a motion to ratify 18-2023 St. John Catholic Church and Sacred Heart Parish raffle only application.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
That's all I have for you.
Okay. Time for public comment and media review. Anyone like to address the commissioners with anything? Anybody sign the sheet?
President Vivian, I believe the three individuals that signed the public comment sign-in sheet were for the per diem application. That was
I think you're probably
right.
right. Okay, then, I know we have a closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under the Annotated Code of Maryland, General Provisions, Article 3-305, little b, 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluations of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction. Any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?